Thank you, Miriam Van Riesen. And I'd like to thank the European External Programs with Africa for inviting me to speak here today. It's truly an honor to be here and be a voice for Tigrayan women and girls as I share my understanding of the conflict-related sexual violence perpetrated against women and girls by Eritrean forces. As we continue to witness the devastating effects of war on Tigray, it is important to address one of the most heinous crimes being committed against the people, which is the use of rape as a weapon of war and genocide. Since November 2020, numerous reports have emerged with evidence of women describing the perpetrators to be from different groups. Some women reported that they were raped by Eritrean Defense Forces, some by Ethiopian National Defense Forces, while others reported being raped by Amhara Special Forces or by the irregular armed group from the same region, Fano. In other instances, survivors reported that multiple soldiers wearing different uniforms and speaking different languages performed the act of violence jointly. It is heart-wrenching to know that no one has been spared. From young girls to elderly women, pregnant and lactating mothers all have fallen victim to these brutal attacks without any discrimination. It is unfortunate that there were delays by the international community in addressing the involvement of Eritrean soldiers and the violences they were committing in the region, even with sufficient evidence being available and reported. Eritrea denied its presence in the war and its participation in the rape and sexual violence against Tigrayan women. Meanwhile, our sisters, daughters, and mothers were and still are subjected to unimaginable horrors. The way we understand is that for Eritrean forces, it was not a violence adjacent to conflict, but it was primed by years of propaganda as well as the official narrative on the eve of the war and the subsequent months by their government. Women have been gang raped, forced into sexual slavery, foreign bodies inserted into their reproductive organs, and brutally, sadistically abused by Eritrean soldiers. These atrocities are not only physically damaging, but also leave deep emotional scars on survivors and their families. The trauma they endure not only affects them, but also tears apart the fabric of our society. Survivors who have sought medical help have come with bruises, stab wounds, burns, foreign objects lodged into their vaginas, and other physical injuries. But it doesn't end there. They also suffer from psychological trauma and reproductive health issues such as fistula, intentionally spread HIV/AIDS, unwanted pregnancies, and miscarriages. This is not just a violation of their bodies, but also an attack on their mental health and their identity as Tigrayan women. The Eritrean perpetrators have gone beyond just physical violence. They have used ethnic slurs like Agame, Komal. They have told women that they're alamat, meaning traitors. They've been sent here to make sure no Tigrayan is left alive, that their wombs should never bear children ever again, and that they're unworthy because of their Tigrayan identity. This is not just rape. This is a deliberate attempt to destroy our entire ethnic group. Multiple reports and research papers concluded that much of the sexual violence perpetrated in the Tigray context was by Eritrean forces. A recent report by Physicians for Human Rights, PHR, specified that up to 66% from the reviewed sample of medical records in their report indicated that rape was perpetrated by Eritrean forces against women and girls in Tigray. However, identifying perpetrators became more challenging as they adapt their tactics. Initially, they were identified by their different dialects when speaking Tigrinya, wearing Congo shoes. Some have marks on their faces and wearing a different uniform. However, after facing international condemnation, they started wearing the uniforms of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces while continuing to commit crimes. This was part of the attempt to conceal the Eritrean perpetration of these crimes. Additionally, the blockade and siege in the region had cut off any support that was coming in, making it more difficult for survivors to access the help they urgently needed. The communication and internet blockade meant there was no voice for the victims. Our sisters were being silenced and isolated from the rest of the world and suffering in silence. Despite the cessation of hostilities agreement signed in November 22, which led people to believe that there could be a complete end to hostilities and enforcement of the agreed upon law terms, Tigrayan women continued to report incidents of sexual violence. This is because there are still areas occupied by Eritrean forces, and our women continue to experience violence until the present day. As a clinician and researcher, I have firsthand witnessed the devastating impacts of conflict-related sexual violence on survivors. The physical and psychological trauma inflicted upon the woman is immense, and it's crucial that they receive appropriate support and justice for the crimes committed against them. To share some stories, a survivor said, three Eritrean soldiers raped me, but that was not all. They put hot metal on my skin and repeatedly hit me on the head. I have burn scars all over my back, my head, between my thighs and vagina. And then they poured some type of chemical on my head. I can't explain to you what it was, but I've been bald ever since. My hair hasn't been able to grow back. That's why I cover it this way. Another survivor disclosed during our interview, as she was fleeing her home and she was detained by Eritrean soldiers, and one she described as Ben Amir started raping her. But when she spoke his language, he immediately stopped and said, "I thought you were Tigrayan," and got up. These are just two of the many stories of our women. The lack of access to essential services further exacerbates the suffering of survivors and hinders their ability to heal and recover from the trauma that they've endured. It's crucial for the international community to prioritize the rebuilding and restoration of health facilities in the region, as well as the provision of specialized support services for survivors of sexual violence. As the mandate of the International Commission of Human Rights Experts in Ethiopia, the ICRI, ends the change of our women getting the chances of our women getting the justice they so deserve has become uncertain and seems impossible. It's crucial that those responsible for these terrible crimes are held accountable. Justice for Tigrayan women and girls cannot be delayed or denied. The international community must support efforts to investigate and prosecute the perpetrators, ensuring that justice is served. Thank you very much.